Hey y'all. Oh, look how my camera's all messed up. Cool. Been messing around with all my cameras lately, so things are in weird places right now. Deal with it. Welcome. I'm Josh. I do crafty creative stuff sometimes. Alright, I've got my camera in actually an extra weird place today because I'm trying to I'm going to be moving a big old giant thing up here. Come on, where are we? I'm over here. Okay, that's close. And then here. Is that better? It's close enough. It's close enough. You get to see the top of my head for a little bit. Okay, so first things first. I've got some of these that I was working on last night. These are my sort of a ongoing project to get as many what would be the word, like pre-made assets available to me. So coming from the world of video game art, the cool thing is you like make a rock and then you just use that rock a billion times, and you make a cliff and you make a valley and you make a whatever, a riverbed, all out of the same rock. So what I'm trying to do is make molds of particular textures that I know that I will often need, and then just be able to have those whenever I want. So I started by making this original. We were working on this a week or so ago, where I was building this type of rock surface that could work like a castle wall. You can imagine it also a riverbed, whatever. And then I want to cast it in a flexible resin so that I could conform it to terrain or wrap it around a cylindrical tower, whatever. And made a mold of it. This was my first cast, and my hope was that I could then join them together in any of 4 directions. And so when they tile, they're not always like, they don't look like a stamp always facing the same right? And I'm running into issues actually getting it to merge together. So I started this with a 3D, well, I wouldn't say I started it. At some point I came to the conclusion that that what I needed to do was, for precision, make a 3D print that I could then test and see, okay, do the sides all fit together properly, etc., etc. And yeah, with that kind of precision I could do it. However, once you add in the human element of, like, you know, all this weird shaping that I did around the side, for whatever reason, like, if it's not 100% conforming to this exact template, which apparently it doesn't do enough, there's enough hair's distance, it makes it so that these don't actually fit together perfectly. So the next thing I'm trying here is to make a cast out of something that is more carvable. So I was using epoxy clay in freeform air, and that way I can take what is here and easily carve little sections out. I can't easily carve little sections out of this because I use real stone for these rocks. So last night I just did a press mold, essentially, or well, I guess it's not a press mold, a pressed cast? I'm not sure what the word, I pressed clay into it, as opposed to just pouring something that's liquid that sets up later. Alright. And I tried to get it as thin as possible so that when I cast it, I'm not using, or well, I'm using the minimum amount of resin, because I don't know if you know this, but resin's very expensive. And so I'm definitely cutting corners, and you can see there are places where There are some holes in there, and I think that's fine. I can patch in the back here fairly easily. But importantly, I can now shave down sides where I'm seeing it's like hitting. And if it's hitting, especially in consistent places, not inconsistent, but in consistent places, that would be ideal for fixing. We'll see. Yeah, so I'm pretty pleased with how much detail I was able to maintain in here. Like, I'm seeing a bubble or two. You can see here's one right here. And so I can just sort of like, boop, pop that right off. All better. Aw, yeah. Anyway, yeah, that's exciting. Another thing I'm considering doing is just like a black wash to get a really good sense of, you know, how it's going to paint up and stuff. But I think probably more importantly at this step is just to get these holes filled in so that I can do whatever else needs to be done. So let's do that real quick. Shouldn't take but a minute, or 2, or 5, or 15. I don't know. I never know how long things are going to take. Do you guys know how long things are going to take? Because I sure don't. Tell this is my favorite tool because it's about twice as thick as it started. This gets all this grunge built up on it over time. Kind of looks like something you would pull out of a cat litter box. So I'm using two very similar products here. This is Fix It Sculpt by the brand AVs, and this is Epoxy Sculpt by the brand AVs. And I would be hard pressed to explain what the actual difference is between these two products. The big difference in my mind is that this one is black and this one is light. So I'm using a little bit of the darker one so that I can kind of get close to matching this gray. Just the more color difference there is, the more the repair kind of sticks out and makes it hard to see if you're blending it in well. So I'm going to start with a little bit of that. And then this is Safety Solvent by AVs. No idea why it's called Safety instead of just Solvent, but there you go. I feel safer using it now. Now it's just a matter of moving it around so I can see where all the little pinprick holes are and filling them in. I'm also trying to think about what kind of texture I could make this back be, since it's already taking on some kind of characteristic. I don't know what exactly. Looks almost like dried mud, or maybe like trampled battlefield, or something along those lines. At a certain scale, like this would definitely not be 28 or 32 mil scale, but it could be maybe like ropey lava ground, or like giant insect hive. I don't know, something jumps out to you, what you think it looks like, let me know. Because I can push it in one direction or another. The important thing is that I keep it as thin as possible. Because, you know, one option is to make it sort of be like this on the other side, but then I'm going to end up with like very thick pieces because it's sticking out, you know, in both directions. Although I imagine if I put the rocks over where the ridge lines poke up the highest, then maybe it kind of balances itself out. I'm not sure. bit surprised how many of these holes I ended up with. I'm not upset by it, because it doesn't take long to sort of fill them in, and it's probably the best way to get the result I want, which is the least amount of material used to cover the most surface and give the most, dynamic topology. I've got other textures I'm working on that are a lot less dynamic as far as like the distance between the lowest low point and the highest high point is a lot less. This one I very much wanted to push that and see like how useful is it to have something that sticks out as far as these do. Also, if anyone has any thoughts on the kind of textures that, like, you could imagine using for any of your crafting needs, you know, from castle floors to, you know, medieval house walls or sci-fi panels, whatever, let me know, because I'm kind of going by the seat of my pants and just guessing based on my needs, but it'd be fun to be able to make these, you know, into something that could be helpful for other people too, since I'm going to be molding and casting them anyway, you know. I already know I want to do things that are more at like 32 millimeter scale. I don't think this quite gets there. Like, you can imagine if it was like a giant fortress or something with walls like this, that could work for wargaming applications. But for the most part, this is probably closer to like, I don't know, 1/10, 1/6 scale. And I think that's just because of the size of the mortar joints. And, well, I guess in the size of the rocks too. Hey, storyteller. Hello from Washington State. Texas will always have a fond place in my heart, since I spent 5 years growing up in San Antonio. But I gotta say, I do prefer the weather in Washington State. Except in winter, then I wish I was in Texas. I think I may have Got most of the holes. Nope, there's still a little one there. Every time I visit Spokane, I'm reminded of Texas. I mean, pretty much everything east of the Cascades feels like Texas to me. Except in the winter, where they get a ton of snow, of course. Not very Texas. Although, the first year I moved down to Texas, I want to say it was 85 or 86. There was a snowfall. I don't know how significant it was. I just remember my parents talking about how the news was just talking about non-stop accidents on the freeway. Like, no one had any idea how to drive on snow, which, you know, not surprising. I learned to drive in North Pole, Alaska, where it's just like 9 months out of the year, it's just a permanent ice sheet over all the roads. So when it snowed, it actually made it less treacherous. Got an offer he couldn't refuse, eh? That was my best attempt at a Marlon Brando impression. I hope you appreciate the effort. That's the top side looking. It's pretty good. for the old rubbery nubbery tool. When your fingers just aren't quite small enough. Yeah, so we have a similar issue in Washington, Western Washington, where we just don't have the infrastructure for snow because it snows. It doesn't even snow every year, and when it does, it's a couple inches maybe, once or twice during the whole year, and we've got like 2 snowplows for the greater Seattle area. So it just shuts down everything. There's accidents everywhere, and buses are sliding off of freeway overpasses, and we also have like a ton of hills. Like Seattle, downtown Seattle is a lot like San Francisco. It's just got these huge hills everywhere, and yeah, it's kind of a mess. Up in Vancouver. Which Vancouver? I'm halfway between the two Vancouvers. My parents live in South Vancouver, the one just across the border from Portland. And then I got a bunch of friends who live in Vancouver, Canada. They're both about a 2.5 to 3 hour drive from here. Yeah, it's kind of on the same bay or sound that Seattle is, so it gets a lot of the same weather moderating effects. That's why they can do so much TV and movie stuff up there. Actually, I think Vancouver, Washington, which is, I don't know, 600 miles south, probably is colder more often than Vancouver, Canada. One of the other sort of secondary goals I'm trying to accomplish with this is have it so that there's a regular point somewhere along all of this area where the highest point would touch any surface that you glue this to. So if you have it like that, I want regular touch points underneath, right? So that it doesn't end up like sagging in weird places. And I'm trying to figure out the best way to actually figure that out. The best plan I've come up with so far, which is probably a bad plan, is to sink it into a pan of water, like a deep pan or dish of some sort, and then just slowly fill up the water and see where the little islands are. And then if I see, oh, there's a lot of islands here and none over here, I can kind of build up those areas. But the other thing that's concerning me right now is that the stuff is fairly flexible. Like I just pressed this into the mold last night, and it takes a full 24 hours to fully harden. So I'm worried that I may be distorting it too much by working on it too soon. We'll see. I might be able to push it back into its mold. One of the things that I want to use for the final mold that I do for the keys is like Lego blocks around the edges, because that helps the rubber sit together really well. But I don't want to waste Legos. And I know there's a lot of like off-brand Lego type things around. I mean, Mega Bloks is sort of an off-brand Lego, but it's almost as expensive as Lego. Does anyone know where you can get a cheap Lego-like brick system that I can basically use as garbage? End up getting destroyed in the mold making process. Oh, maybe a dollar store would have something like that. Sand it in a jig so the piece can't flex. Sandpaper against the flat surface. Ah, yeah. I would need a pretty big sanding block, at least a long one. But I imagine I could just glue the sandpaper to a plank. Yeah, that's a good idea. I like that. So basically just build up wherever I want touch points to be taller than, than I know that I want them. Yeah. like that. That's kind of what I have. I have a jig, right? Oh, I hid it for myself. Whenever I'm looking for a thing, I always realize I put it in some place I'll never find again. But yeah, I've been making these other tiles for, you know, more like what is the word for stone that has been worked into particular shapes to make tiles out of? Anyway, for, you know, floors and walls and stuff like that. And yeah, I'm putting them in these molds, and then when I take them out, I have a little like inset thing, and then I sand over that to get them a nice flat edge. And especially works well for these where I'm like pushing it up into the corners, and so I have a really irregular sides around them. And yeah, I just sand those down. Sheet of glass to mount the sandpaper, wrap it around the edges, and tape it down the back. I wonder, I broke on through to the other side. Like the biggest sheets of sandpaper I've seen are like office paper size. They have bigger than that? And does the next episode of Lord of the Rings come out tonight? It's Thursdays, right? Oh no, not I could get glass at any size. It's the sandpaper. Like, I don't know if I have sandpaper big enough to cover a larger surface than this and wrap around the edges. Yeah, I actually cut glass recently when I was building this airbrushing booth back there. I cut mirrors for both sides and glass. You can't see it, but the top of it is glass too, so that I can shine light straight down into the booth. I think I managed to find all the holes. Now let's see if we can contort it back into the mold. Wish me luck. Alright. First we have to figure out which way is up. Actually, yeah, okay. It's literally like this. Could cut away the little flappy doodles that are overhanging it. That might help. But they also help to make sure I'm getting the height the same as the original, so I'd rather not cut them off if I don't have to. historically, trying to get a cast back into a mold has only ended in tears, so I'm pretty shocked at how easy this has been going. Although, to be fair, most of the things I've molded are like characters, creatures and stuff that have a lot more weird things going on with them. Oh yeah, keeping everything perfectly level, that would be another challenge with that sanding, huh? Well, I think that's back together pretty good. Okay, and I cut a notch, here we go, on one side of the mother mold here, and a notch on the rubber mold there, so I can easily line those up. Now, in theory, if I sort of firmly press this down, it should be pretty close to the original. Okay. So if I did want to do the raised pillar thing, like I can kind of see like this is probably one of the highest points and this is probably one of the highest points. So I could mix up some freeform air, plop that into place. I'm gonna go ahead and pop these out too while I'm popping. That way if there's any leftovers, I can turn it into these fancy little lads. So with these textures, I'm going above and beyond, right? Like, if I'm just making a texture for a diorama like this one we're about to start on pretty soon, if it's a straightforward thing, I'm just gonna scry the lines into XPS foam. But if I'm going to be doing something super fancy that I'm gonna reproduce, I might as well go all the way and actually compose it of individual blocks and, you know, mortar them together. And, you know, I can, because I'm making them in this material, I can snap them and then kind of stick them back together, and you get like really beautifully crisp little erosion and cracks and stuff like that that you really like. I've never seen anyone reproduce something that looks that realistic just by hand carving or scratching or whatever. So it's a little excessive to do it the way that I'm doing it, but since I want to reproduce these for perpetuity, not perpetuity, what's the word I'm looking for? For, does it even start with a P? Posterity, that's the word I was looking for. Perpetually, let's go with nothing. That's it. I'm done. I'm tapped out. All the fun words I was going to try to explore, they're just out of the brain. All right, so I'm going to use freeform air for this part because freeform air sands super easy. It's very light and fluffy. And what I may do, I may try to mix this into it, even though this is well past its prime. You know, it's been, what, at least an hour, maybe 45 minutes I've been working with it. But mixing a little bit of this into freeform air gives it a little more plasticity and sculptability. These are not like prime attributes that I'm worried about at this point, but I have it sitting around, so it's like, why not? And it'll tint it a little closer to the gray that I'm working with. Again, that is not like super important, but it does help you see if something is clearly not like smoothed together. It is so weird / annoying that I don't know where my hexagon tiles went. Oh, I found him. I found him. Since I'm spending time mixing anyway, figured I might as well look around. Yeah, this is for sanding these tiles down. I made this cheesy little jig that basically I can move a sanding block over it and get them all to a consistent height. So I can imagine doing a larger version of that for this. And the epoxy sculpt is older, further along its set time than the freeform air. You end up with a nice cookies and cream consistency material. And by nice, I mean not nice at all, but it looks delicious. Looks like if you mashed an Oreo up. I'm just going to add a little bit of colorant to this so it gets closer to my gray. Okay. So this area seems a little bit low, so I'm going to pick a few peaks to raise up. maybe getting a little low there. Alright, cool. So we still got a little bit of time to hop to our giant diorama. Alright, so I'm thinking I'm going to try to get this big boy up here. Look at that. Beautiful. Camera's even almost in the right place. Okay, so here's what I'm trying to figure out right now. I've got all the parts sort of like the individual floors. Let's see, this would be the second story floor. Yep. This is the third story floor. And I've been able to work on these relatively easily because they're separate. You can pull them out and work on them without having to move this giant thing around. But this bottom floor here is attached to the big giant thing. So I've got a couple options. I could cut it all out and then reattach it, or I could possibly just be able to work on it here. That's what I'm trying to figure out right now. Like, what is the best way to handle this? But before I do that, I want to make sure, do what we call a sanity check, which is to make sure that the parts all fit together properly. This pillar about 4 times now. It does not want to stay for some reason. One of the things that I'm trying to figure out is how to keep the pillars going up evenly across the different stories. And I think that I'm being thrown off a little bit because this bottom arc that I cut is not perfectly even. But like, if I'm going by the tiles that travel across like so, this guy needs to be all the way back there, which you can see the difference in size. Like from here, it's got like a full, goes all the way to my knuckle, and then here it's like barely my fingertip. So something needs to change if these are going to stay in that alignment. But it just, there's something about it that looks wrong to me, and I can't put my finger on it, even though I literally just put my finger on it. That's too long. Just like, why does that look so off? Because I don't want these in a straight row. I want them in a slight arc. So they feel better if they're like this, but then that is out of whack again. Like this would need to be here. And so maybe it's less a matter of going from this edge back and more just like change this edge so that it fits the way the pillars actually sit. Sanity checks are sometimes notoriously easy to fail. Okay, so first floor. Let's put this up here. Yeah, I think one of the other problems that I'm running into is that this is very front heavy because all of this part is made out of the XPS foam. These parts are made out of resin because I sculpted like one section of this, cast it 16 times or whatever the number was, and then attached them to the front, and that just makes it always want to tip forward. So I'm trying to figure out how to get these seated in such a way that I can, you know, obviously once I glue it together, it'll be glued together. I don't have to worry about that, but I need it modular for as long as possible while I'm working on it. I think if I attach something up here, just maybe something as simple as a toothpick for now. Okay, so another one that keeps breaking, and maybe a good way to deal with that is to make something that glue can stick to better. That could be a problem. The other thing I need to be considering is to make sure this is facing the right way, because I've got all these other ones set up to, let's see, right, be offset, so the middle motif needs to be between, oh, yep, that's the exact lineup. So I need a hole right here, right here. That is a question I am not an expert on, but I'll bet someone here is. Thanks for the help, Bill. Oh, and look at that. We are at our time. So let's go ahead and find someone cool to raid. Whilst I try to figure out how I had this lined up. Well, I didn't need that nail anyway. Thank you everyone for joining. Please check out my YouTube channel for art tutorials. Follow my Instagram. And all that good stuff. All right, catch you guys later.